Garrett Cook is local, and he has a series of books. Right? There's
well, there's one right now, but it's
one
a
right
series.
now, but you're working on it. A series of books called Murderland, and he has a website, evilnerdempire.com.
Well, my publisher does.
Well, your publisher does. Yeah, which you can get the book. You can get it online, right?
Yeah, Amazon.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but Garrett helped put this event together, and we're very thankful to have him here. And so, here you go. Do you want to chair, or do you want to?
I like to stand more.
Okay.
All right. Well, my book is the story of an alternate America where serial killers are red-hot celebrity athletes. And living in this alternate America is a very, very angry, misunderstood young pharmacist who's not very fond of being a pharmacist and has been killing nubile young blondes to prevent them from becoming pregnant with the seeds of extra-dimensional Lovecraftian entities. He, however, has big objections to these media monstrosities and has to make a decision whether he wants to, take the war in his head out to the streets, whether he wants to redeem this world, or whether he's perfectly happy possibly jousting with imaginary hobgoblins for the rest of his existence. Whether they're imaginary or not is also called into question. So, here's the chapter. It's entitled, Television Man is Crazy. You Mott the Hoople fans will get this one. In Ohio and Indiana, authorities report that Bundy Award nominee, the I-80 Road Flare Stalker, struck again. At 46 kills, it's possible he might just bring home the Bundy. What do you think, Valerie? Well, Chet, the Road Flare is definitely a contender this year, and since Jack Kavanaugh voluntarily removed himself from the Bundy runnings, it seems that Mr. Wright, the I-80 Road Flare, and Hacksaw Sally... Nice to see a lady in the runnings, isn't it, Valerie? Oh, definitely, Chet. If you're asking me, it's high time. The remote clicks. The talking heads bantering sport talk fade into cathode hell, burning and writhing alongside frames too numerous to mention. Cass yawns her way up from the quilt, and stretches up as if grabbing for something on the ceiling. The falling quilt reveals round breasts the color of bread dough, and sharp russet nipples. Jeremy is trying to decide whether he believes she is a robot or not. He's been inside her, tasted her, and it feels warm enough in there. Oh God, it feels warmer than anywhere to Jeremy. But it might just be some kind of plastic from the dimensions the Dark Ones come from. After all, she, like all the others, watches all the murders on the TV going down, places bets on her favorites, screams in the chat rooms now and again, jeers the boring ones, and maintains the brand loyalty that only a true junkie can have. She is entertained. In the middle of all the shit and the violence and the noise and the death, she is entertained. Sometimes she might be entertained by the irony, sometimes by the repugnant nature of what this country has become, sometimes by the cheering stupidity of the inane newscasters and the cacophonous blaring of the loud and pointless commercials. She's occasionally disgusted by how far this has gone, by how rape culture has been perverted from its purer forms and reduced to a pop culture cult. It used to be just people who really understood why people kill, and the defiance and the intensity involved. It didn't used to be stupid teenagers who didn't even know the names Jack the Ripper or Albert DeSalvo, although there's still plenty who idolize these two. But still, so often she can't tear herself away from it. It makes Jeremy debate whether she is in fact one of the few intelligent people he has ever met, or if she is falling for the game too. Just falling into the pit they dig for people who are looking too close. He stops and thinks about the razors he keeps in the briefcase, and about how there might just be wires in her. God, don't let there be wires. He thinks, God, don't let there be wires. Don't let there be the fiber optic cables that link up to the receivers for satellite images. Don't let there be neural uplinks to the Dark Ones. His breathing gets heavy, and there begins to be a burning feeling in his eyes. His head begins to throb violently with a humming like a fork against a violin string. He cannot stop thinking about wires and cables, and the mechanical whirring of the machines around him. Cass leans over and kisses him, and relief washes over Jeremy's feverish brain. Human, of course. Should have known. She is, after all, a brunette. The Dark Ones will never touch her. I love you, she says. Her face gets bright, and she looks at him as if he was the most interesting thing she had ever seen. She looks at him like a sunset. I love you, he replies. It is all that he feels, all he wants to say, and know and think about. He returns her kiss voraciously. It expands and moves around her mouth. The kiss, once small, has become a colossus. They roll over on top of each other, writhe and shake, and they coil around one another, and begin to explode with power and intensity. Jeremy's eyes are full of astronomy. The movements of planets and the blazing of bright new stars shine in them. His perpetual motion, superpowered Swiss watch brain lets itself shut off, lets itself return to its roots as meat and juices. Cass sort of sees somebody she was a few thousand years back in Egypt or Mesopotamia or something of the sort. She remembers being as she is at the moment, naked and exulting in the triumph of being and the movements of everything. There is Jeremy, and there is Cass, and they are creation, crashing like waves and falling like torrents of rain. And then Jeremy's elbow hits the remote and the channel changes. The room fills with venom oozing from the television, and Jeremy can feel it. Jeremy smells the cloud of noxious hate and feels the flames of persecution lick at his feet. He feels more than a little sick. Carl Edward Pratt, Kris Kringle, was found dead in his home today at the age of 57. And this is a person Jeremy shot the previous day. Kringle was known for the particularly inventive and grisly qualities of his murders, involving dismembering his victims and delivering body parts to their families. His killings numbered 14 to date, and while compared to others that might seem to be few, he will still be remembered for the viciously ingenious nature of those he committed. Pratt's identity was discovered only when police found a kitchen full of human body parts and wrapping paper. The media and the American people alike remained ignorant of the identity of the visionary that so ably captured their attention. Carl Edward Pratt, you will be missed. This is a true American tragedy. The news anchor, no longer a portrait of stony ersatz integrity, looks genuinely dismayed. He purses his lips in dissatisfaction in one of those rare moments during which he finds something truly sad. Jeremy is not altogether certain that those moments exist, and is skeptical that somebody like Pratt would have earned one, but this is the typical death knell of a minor celebrity. Thorough appreciation, a tragedy painted so eloquently, a career exaggerated, an explosion of relevance onto the life and the TV screen alike. Then suddenly the tragedy fades from the news anchor's face. The relevance oozes down a drain behind his desk. He straightens up, perks up, and turns to the woman at the desk beside him, the bleach blonde with the low-cut blouse and the wrong shade of lipstick. Jeremy wonders if she's related to the identical news anchor on Channel 8. Back to you, Eileen. Cass finally shuts off the TV, and a frown spreads across her face. That's too bad, she says. I kind of liked his work. It's occasionally nice to see them cover something besides Godless Jack or Hacksaw Sally. And sometimes he was just amazing. He really had his moments. Like when he sent the Haskell girl's parents her stomach, it was full of his cum. I mean, Jesus. Her tone changes. It's more upbeat, more exciting. And the statement her folks gave the press was completely priceless, totally vintage. Cass launches into a bad Texas drawl. We appeal to you, our fellow Americans, to help get safe zone regulations repealed and get monsters like the so-called Kris Kringle who did this to our daughter off the streets. Gina was the most precious gift that God ever gave us, and while we cannot have her back, new laws will allow many, many people to have their little girls come back home. Cass falls into utter paroxysms of laughter, and Jeremy heaves a very long sigh. He looks angry. Cass, they're human beings and they lost their daughter. It's not funny. Imagine how your parents would feel. What would they be saying on their news if they lost you to some maniac? What would I be saying? Disgust creeps into Cass. She'll never get used to his moments of moralizing. They come so briefly and they seem so random. Maniac? Maniac? You're so backwards sometimes, Jeremy. You know that? I can't believe you're using that word. Catholic school really must have gotten to you. Maniac. God, these people have problems, Jeremy. Real, honest-to-God psychological problems. But they overcome adversity and rise up to provide us with hours of quality entertainment every week. Talk like that makes you no better than guys like Tommy Simmons and the Christian Victims Front. You should go out and... Jeremy has heard this from Cass, as much as Cass has heard Jeremy's tirades. Just as much as she didn't want him to open his mouth about it, he does not want to hear it from her. So Jeremy does the one thing that any right-thinking, red-blooded American male does in such a circumstance. He acquiesces. I'm sorry, Cass, you're right. I was just saying that it was kind of in poor taste because, well, you know, they have a right to be angry. After all, they did lose someone they loved to this person. They might not have a right to scorn or be bigoted or persecute, since society has progressed beyond punishing people for who they are. You're right. But by the same token, you can't really blame the victims. They're people too, aren't they? Much of the time, Jeremy does not quite believe this. In fact, much of the time, Jeremy does not believe this at all, as in this day and age, real human beings seem to Jeremy to be few and far between.